Hello everyone, my name is Deniz and I'm the head of ecosystem growth at Kyber Network. And before I begin, I want to thank the Avalanche team and all the organizers for doing an amazing job with organizing the summit. I think it's been super interesting. The hackathon has been amazing. So yeah, first of all, thank you for that. And today I want to talk to you about the explosion of the DeFi space and how decentralized exchanges have been the backbone of this explosion since 2017, but picking up steam over the last few years especially. For those of you who don't know, decentralized finance, or DeFi as we like to call it, is referring to a whole range of applications deployed on Ethereum, ranging from lending and borrowing to exchanges to margin trading to derivatives and all sorts of different applications that are deployed on a blockchain, and that's what makes it kind of decentralized. And over the last few years, we've seen tremendous growth in this space across a whole number of metrics. If you take volumes, they're in the hundreds of billions. If you take the collateral that's locked up and underpinning all these loans and borrowing apps we're mentioning, is right now I think in 13 billion. And just a year ago was only 1 billion. So there's been huge growth in there. Number of users has gone up tremendously. So we've seen a huge expansion of this space. And this even reflects in the CoinMarketCap top 100 cryptos, for example. If you look at it, Ethereum is number 2, but then there's over 20 in that top 100, which are all DeFi related. Some of these are DAI and MKR, CDAI, Aave, KNC, Nexus Mutual, or all sorts of tokens are now like highly rated and because of this growth. And I think this growth couldn't really have come about without the growth and maturity of exchange mechanisms on Ethereum. Because when we think about it, all of finance is really the exchange of one value to another. So one asset to another, one sort of risk to another. So you go from USD to bonds. That's one kind of exchanging of value. You can go from taking an Apple stock, for example, to creating a leveraged position out of it. Or you can go from real estate, convert that to real estate mortgages, and convert that to collateralized debt position that is a bundle of these mortgages. You're always converting one asset to another. So we could say that that exchange mechanism is the engine of the financial system. So if we see a financial system as a car, what's driving this, what's allowing that value exchange is basically the engine, the exchange mechanism. And okay, just like an engine can convert stored energy, fuel, into kinetic energy, decentralized exchanges have similar mechanisms for converting one asset to another. And I think there's three kind of primitive pieces to an engine. So the first one is price matching, and that's actually bringing together the takers and the makers into one common platform so that they can kind of come to an agreement on the price. And it's basically bringing together all the counterparties under one platform, under one venue. And once they have done that, once they have agreed on a price, the second important component of that engine is the trade execution. It's where you're actually converting it. It's a technical aspect of it. And there's different approaches to this, from custodial approaches to non-custodial. And once you have that trade execution, the other important component is the trade settlement. And this is what actually confirms and finalizes the trade for all the parties. And the beauty of it here is that because we're doing it on a blockchain, you get this powerful effect because the blockchain is permissionless and it's an open environment. So every time you have an open and permissionless environment, that leads to huge innovation. Anyone from anywhere around the world can think of an exchange mechanism, so can think of the price matching, can think of a new trade execution or a new settlement way, and can deploy it on Ethereum at almost no cost. And that's the beauty of it. That's what's led to this DeFi's growth, because so many people from their bedrooms, from all around the world are now thinking of exchanges and exchange mechanisms and deploying it on chain. So an example I like to give is, for example, Fulcrum. Fulcrum is a leveraged trading product where you can go 5x on Ethereum. And how you would usually do that is take some ETH and lock it up so that you can get a DAI loan with that. That DAI you get, you sell it for more ETH. With that ETH, you go and buy more DAI. With the DAI, you buy more ETH, and you're kind of in a circular loop here until you build a leveraged position. But Fulcrum uses Kyber's exchange mechanism in the backend, kind of plugs it into it, so that this whole loop can all happen within one single transaction and settled instantly on chain. And it's just super powerful that you can kind of plug into Kyber's exchange mechanism, or you can plug into any other exchange mechanism, because what we have here is what we call money Lego. All these pieces, all these exchange mechanisms, the price matching, the execution, the settlement, can all be modular, and they can all be brought together in different and unique ways to build new dApps on top of it. But we didn't always start, with this composability. If we look back at the first kind of exchange that was on Ethereum, that was Ether Delta. But I think the downside to Ether Delta was that it was trying to copy the conventional exchange mechanism of an order book, and that kind of mechanism isn't really suited for the blockchains of that time, at least back in 2017, because you didn't have that much speed, or you could have speed, but you would compromise on security and immutability. There's always a kind of compromise there. But at the time, Ether Delta was too slow, and that's what brought out all the other new exchange mechanisms. And that's how today we have multiple exchange mechanisms with different advantages and different disadvantages. You have, for example, automated market making now, which was quite an interesting innovation in the last couple of years. And this is where the price matching basically happens automatically based on an algorithm or based on an equation. So you could say my price matching is going to be X times Y equals K. So you get this simple curve, and that means that if someone wants to come and buy 10 apples, you just go down 10 apples, you go up the curve, and you see, oh, that's 3 oranges. That's how much it's going to cost. It's determined by this formula. And examples of this include Uniswap and Bancor, for example. Another model we saw is the hybrid model, where market makers might say, it's too expensive to do the price matching on chain. How about we agree between ourselves off chain that we want to do this trade, and then we go and we settle on chain after we've signed the messages saying that both parties agree to it, and then the price execution and the settlement happens on chain, so you have those security guarantees as well, even though you kind of match the price at a different level. And then finally you have the model that Kyber is based on, and this is a model for request for quote, where let's say, do you want to make a trade? You say, I want to sell 10 oranges again, and the Kyber smart contract will go to 30-40 different liquidity providers, and we'll get a quote from each of them. This is happening instantly. Basically knows all the quotes, and the beauty of it here is that because it can get a quote from anywhere, this means that it's connected to professional market makers who are providing their liquidity to Kyber. It's connected to individual token teams that might want to provide liquidity for their tokens. And it's also pulling in liquidity from existing exchanges like Uniswap and Bancor. So the beauty of it is that someone who goes to Uniswap will get the best price at Uniswap, but that's only one price. But if another option had been better for the end user, then Kyber would have pulled it from that source. So now what you end up with is all these different kind of engines, these exchange mechanisms. They're all driving at different speeds and at different efficiencies. And that's what leads to innovation, because they're all kind of optimizing for something else. One is trying to be the most permissionless one. One might try to be the most gas efficient one. One is trying to be whatever characteristic you wanted, that's what you prioritize. But the common thing with all of these is that just like an engine needs to run smoothly, because at the end of the day it's metal to metal, it has friction, then these exchanges have friction as well. But the lubricant of any exchange mechanism is liquidity. And simply put, without liquidity, your engine won't run. Your exchange won't be able to do trades. So what is liquidity? There's a few different ways to think of liquidity, but the easiest is to think of it as the size of the market and the impact that size has on how sensitive the price is to any given order. So if there is low liquidity, it means there's not enough of that asset to buy or sell, or there are not enough sellers or buyers in that market, which means the chances of an existing buyer and seller agreeing on a price is low, because one buyer might say, I want to buy at $10, the seller might say, I want to sell at $12, and now you have a spread of $2, and that's the spread, and that's the cost of an illiquid market. Whereas on the other hand, if you had thousands of buyers and sellers, and therefore much more inventory, the chances are some buyer would be willing to sell at $12.50 and a seller would be willing to sell at $12.51. So the gap is only 1 cent. The cost of jumping and buying a trade is only 1 cent, so it's a far more liquid market. So you can think of liquidity as how easy it is to buy and then sell without affecting the price. And the lower the liquidity, then your engine doesn't work as efficiently. So this liquidity in conventional markets comes from regular traders who put their orders on order books, but it can also come from professional market makers as well, who specialize in providing quotes and making markets in conventional finance. We are seeing that within the DeFi space as well, but there is a huge kind of, I don't know how to put it, but a lot of it has gone straight to market makers who are individuals who are basically locking up their crypto and becoming liquidity providers. So what they do is they say, okay, here is a certain amount of inventory and I'm putting it on Uniswap, and anyone who wants to buy or sell can go and buy and sell from there. And because it's a decentralized exchange, because it's programmable, you can program incentives into that model. So the incentive might be for liquidity providers to be compensated from fees earned from each trade, for example. Or they can be compensated from governance tokens, for example. You can do all sorts of different programmable ways by using up this model. And this aspect of it has really pushed DeFi forward a lot as well, and we have a whole new space called yield farming. I won't get into that, but there is a lot of innovation happening. Although on a side note, there are disadvantages to automated market making, which has become so popular right now. So, okay, there is a simple curve and the pricing is easy to understand, but that curve is not flexible, so you can't really deploy custom strategies on it. Or because it's a curve and it's not manual market making, it's not as capital efficient, because you're pricing for the edges of that curve as well. And those are edge cases, and it means if you're selling at that rate or buying at that rate, someone is making a huge loss, because 10 oranges might equal almost an infinite amount of bananas, for example, one ERC20 to another. So yeah, I mean, that's the approach that Kyber has taken over here, is more of allowing any kind of liquidity source to come and connect into it. So that's where our manual kind of market making system comes in, where anyone can deploy their own kind of reserve type. You can think of any kind of pricing mechanism you want, kind of hook it onto that and feed it downstream to multiple different dApps, and that's been very attractive for market makers. The advantage of this Fed price reserve, which is Kyber's price reserve mechanism. So just to wrap it up, because I'm seeing I'm running out of time, basically Ethereum's open and permissionless environment has led to huge innovation, especially when it comes to exchange mechanisms. And this has led to further innovation one level above at the application level, where applications are coming in and kind of leveraging the existing infrastructure. You know, they're building services on top of it. And this, combined with a strong network effect, because more and more people are developing on Ethereum, because of the composability aspect that kind of ties this whole together, is what has led to Ethereum becoming one of the largest smart contract platforms out there. And I believe it's going to keep growing incredibly. We are seeing other great projects come, like Avalanche, like other smart contract platforms that have other kind of strengths. So we are seeing this landscape completely open up, and I think we have a tremendously exciting time ahead of us in terms of open, decentralized, permissionless financial systems and non-financial systems as well. Thank you very much.